And one of the biggest problems or mistakes that I see in companies is they see a very short term. They're putting goals 1, 2, 3 years. When I tell them, hey, let's do a 5-year, they say, no, it's too far away. We cannot even think that far. And that is a big problem. If you really want to build a 50, 100, $1 billion company, you have to really be able to see long term. As an example, Apple took around 25 years to get to 10,000 employees. Not bad, amazing 10,000 employees, but it was not the $2 trillion company that Apple is today, right? And then it had this inflection point, and then in 10 or 15 years went from like 10,000 to 50,000. And that's kind of what happens. So the best companies in the world, the ones that are really doing a dent in the industry, are looking long term and really setting goals and views of how that company is going to be dominating the industry in the long term. And the best methodology and kind of mental framework that I've used for that is Dan Sullivan. He has this book called the 25-Year Framework. Amazing, amazing book. And here's the important thing that I've learned. Human beings overestimate what we could accomplish in the short term and underestimate what we could accomplish in the long term. So if you put small short-term goals, most likely you're going to miss them. And then next time you put a smaller goal because you're afraid you're going to miss it. And then that you start making smaller and smaller bets and goals. The big companies, the ones that really think long-term, put very aggressive long-term goals. And they're focused for a long time just in the same thing they want to accomplish. And usually they overcome these big goals by a big number because you have compound interest. If you're able to grow 20% a year compounded, the growth is an amazing growth at the end of 25 years. So really, really important that you understand this framework and you start thinking long-term, 10 to 25 years at least, to start really understanding what you have to do in your company strategically to be able to dominate your industry. Now let's get into the 4 stages. And I believe all scale-ups have to go through 4 stages of growth. Startup, grow up, scale up, and then a corporation where they dominate their industry. And in each one, I'm going to go through these areas. First, what's the average number of employees? And as I said, this is the average. I'm going to try to do what I've seen in the US, being the average size of companies. And most importantly, this is determined based on the complexity of the operation. It's very different of the structure and leadership you have to do in a company, let's say, with 20 employees or a company with 200 employees. So for me, what really determines the stage is the amount of employees and the complexity of running that operation. One more thing here that is important. I've seen a company that has 100 people in management, let's say, or administration, and then they have a factory with 500. Don't count the factory, because your competitor could have just 100 and outsource the factory to China or Vietnam or Mexico, and they just count 100, and you're going to be counting 600 employees. So the amount of team that I want you to measure is the team that you use for administration, leadership, all that, technology. If you have a factory, don't count the factory. You could probably count the managers of the factory, but don't count the 500 or 2,000 people in the factory. And this will set more or less the complexity of your operation, and that will set you in what stage you are at today. And in each one, I'm going to go in the next 4 slides, going through what's the main focus on the stage, the priority, the barrier that you're going to have to overcome, what's the ability you have to develop as a leader, and then the decision. So I'm going to go through these stages in 3 different lenses. The first lens is how the company evolves from startup to a corporation. Then how you have to evolve from entrepreneur to CEO, because the only way you're going to be able to grow your company is if you go first to the next level, so you're able to take your company to the next level. And then the third one, it's a little bit on your team members, how they see themselves on the stages, and what you have to train them on to be able to grow them from stage to stage as the company is evolving. So stage 1, it's a startup, 1 to 5 employees more or less. And the most important thing on stage 1 is that you get your product market fit. You have a business plan with certain assumptions, and now you are trying to validate your business plan and validate your assumptions. So you need to figure out if what you want to sell, the pricing, distribution channels, the cost and everything is the right product and clients are willing to buy it from you, or they will demand your service or your products. And that's why you have to figure out what's the product market fit. 2, the priority. is validating the business model. You are validating the assumptions, and now you validate you really have a business model that is worth to scale and take to the next level. And the barrier that you have to learn how to overcome is the market dynamics. In your assumption, you said, yeah, I'm going to sell this, and my clients are going to pay me like this, and they're going to pay me in advance or in 30 days. And then when you start playing in the industry, you start realizing that the competitor say, well, I'll give you 90 days of payment plan, or I'll give you a 10% discount if you pay on time, or you really understand the market dynamics of the real market, not the assumptions that you have on your business plan. The best ability you need to develop as a leader is marketing. And for me, and by the way, this I learned really late in my career. I wish I knew this better, and I would have studied marketing in college and got much better with marketing at the beginning of my career. For me, marketing is a way of communication. For you to tell your client what you want to sell them, and for your client to tell you, hey, I'm willing to buy this is the price, this is how I like it. It needs a communication between you and your potential client to really be able to refine your product and get your product market fit.